Hello and welcome to NJBIZ Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. My guest today is Lynda Bennett. She is a partner at Lowenstein Sandler and chair of the firm's insurance recovery group. Lynda, welcome.
Thank you, Jeff, for having me. It's a pleasure.
Oh, thanks for taking the time to do it. I appreciate it. Now, insurance may not be everybody's favorite topic, but coverage issues are critical for business owners and executives to understand. And I wanted to get your views on some of those issues, starting with the CrowdStrike outage, which got a lot of attention when it happened, kind of faded a little bit from the headlines. But as I understand it, the effects could be really long lasting. So I wanted to start there and just if you could remind us what happened
Sure.
in the CrowdStrike crisis, particularly from your perspective and what you were thinking as the crisis unfolded. What happened and what were you seeing?
Sure. So insurance isn't for everybody, but it's definitely for me. Been doing this for 30 years and absolutely love to do it. And one of the most important things about insurance, and then I'll dive into what happened with CrowdStrike, but what happened, with insurance, it really is what I describe as a patchwork quilt now of coverage. You need to have lots of different insurance policies in place. And in this particular case with CrowdStrike, we start to find out whether there's holes in the patchwork quilt, right? So about a month ago with CrowdStrike, what happened was CrowdStrike pushed out an update into its software program, and many companies across many different industries were relying on CrowdStrike security. When they put that update out, there was a code error in it that put up the blue screen, the dreaded blue screen of death into Microsoft. And so although CrowdStrike was able to push out a correction to that in about an hour and a half after the problem arose, it created a ripple effect through the supply chain there, and many companies were out for several hours and some were out for days before they could figure out how to fix the problem with how the CrowdStrike piece intersected with Microsoft. So what happened was companies were shut down entirely. The losses for insurers right now are currently calculated at about 1.5 billion. Which sounds like a lot of money. However, right now, cyber insurance coverage is pretty big business for insurance companies. They collect about $15 billion a year in premiums. So it's relative, but a 10% loss across the book is pretty significant nonetheless.
Okay, all right. So how are the insurance companies going to respond to this? How are they responding, and how do you expect they will respond?
Yeah, and it's a great question because there's really two elements to this. The first element is there are obviously claims that are going to be made to the insurance companies that flow out of this particular event. But the other element, which I'll get into in more detail in a second, is what's this going to mean for policyholders going forward? Because each time we have these widespread events, there's the claims and lessons learned. So in terms of the claims, what policyholders are going to find is the devil's going to be in the details of their particular policy language. So one of the things I tell clients all the time is not all insurance policies are created equal. And that's particularly true in the cyber insurance space. And you buy your auto or your homeowners, it's an off-the-shelf product. You get the terms, you take it or leave it. In cyber policies, it's really kind of the Wild West, and these terms are negotiable. Some people are going to get coverage for this. Others are going to find out that, for example, cyber policies have a waiting period. So you may be experiencing losses over the first 8 to 12 hours that you weren't able to access your systems. That won't be covered. A lot of these policies require that you have to be out for at least 8 to 12 hours. Some policies also have sub-limits on them. So you may look at your policy and see a $25 million limit, but there may actually be a sub-limit that says for a widespread event like this, we only pay $1 million. So you're really going to have to dive into the terms and conditions of these policies. Some of them have exclusions. And one thing that's really unique about this CrowdStrike situation that's different from SolarWinds and some of these earlier ones that we heard about is this didn't involve any nefarious conduct. This didn't involve a hack or a bad actor. This was a simple mistake that got pushed out and then created a ripple effect. And I think there are going to be carriers really carefully looking at this because we see how quickly and how large these losses can rack up for that kind of a simple negligence event.
Okay. So are you expecting that there are going to be a new, I don't want to say a batch of exclusions or one more exclusion about this kind of thing? Is that what businesses have to face going forward?
Yeah, I think what they should be, what policyholders should be looking for on renewal is there will be refinements to the policy language. You may see more sublimits. You may see a widespread, some carriers have this idea of a widespread event is going to be treated differently than something that just happens to your system. I think that carriers are going to be looking carefully at whether they want to cover this ordinary negligence, or do they want the cyber policy really to be about threat actors and nefarious conduct? So, and I can tell you that as policyholders come up on renewal, they are going to be asked, what happened to you in CrowdStrike? Did you guys go down? If you went down, how did you respond? What are the lessons that you've learned? What changes are you making to your system so that you'll be able to respond more nimbly? And that's going to have impact not on whether you'll be insured. It's going to have impact on, are your retentions going to be going up? Is the premium going to be going up? So definitely policyholders will be hearing about this when they go to renew the cyber policies they have in place right now.
All right. So what should they be doing? I mean, obviously reading the policy very carefully, but I'll bet that must be daunting for a lot of folks. I mean, I haven't seen one, but I'm just imagining, again, you talk about my homeowner's insurance, my car insurance, those policies are difficult and dense to get through. Something like this, I'm imagining a business owner and executive is going to have a hard time sort of getting through it. What should they be looking for?
Well, they really need to create a team of people. They need to have their insurance broker looking at it. We do policy audits for our clients because we see lots of variations across these different terms. And as I said before, people are surprised to find out you can negotiate these terms, and you should be thinking about them before a claim ever comes in. You need to involve your IT people and say, where do we house our data? How good are our, do we have best practices? What do our contracts say? Because one of the things I was really focused on with CrowdStrike is that ripple effect across the supply chain. A lot of companies use cloud, keep their information in the cloud and use third parties for that. What insurance do they have in place? Do you have in your contracts with those vendors rights that you get to go under their insurance policy when they're the ones that make the mistake? So there's a whole risk management, advanced planning that can be put around something like this so that the impact to you will be less. And if unfortunately you experience the claim, you'll get maximum coverage.
Okay. Well, you mentioned a couple of things that I wanted to just get a little bit more on. First of all, you talked about talking to your IT people. So should there be a technology response here? I mean, should you be I'm guessing businesses need to be looking at the hardware and software that they're using. Yes. I mean, that's
and right. And how those interact. And one of the other things I'm seeing my clients do is also doing that cost benefit analysis. Should I buy more cyber insurance at higher rates, or should I take that money and invest in better security, better, planning on the tech side, better firewalls when we're dealing with ransomware types of things? So clients are definitely engaged in that. Create my shopping list and prioritize. Am I buying all insurance, or can I manage this risk through contracts with my vendors, better software, better firewalls, things of that nature?
Okay. And you mentioned that insurers are going to be asking policyholders about their response to CrowdStrike and what happened to them. If you were down like significantly and suffered significant losses, is that going to be a real problem in terms of getting insurance, getting cyber insurance, or is it something that if you're willing to pay, you'll get what you need?
It largely becomes a pricing conversation. As I said before, the carriers are very happy to collect the premiums. They want to bring on the risks. It becomes more of a pricing conversation. And one other thing that I want to note, though, sometimes my clients with other coverage lines don't want to really share a lot of information with the carrier on how the sausage is made. In this instance, I actually think it's better because the carriers have best practices that they can bring to you. And I think a lot of these cyber insurers are very committed to loss prevention through education on the front end. So a lot of these carriers actually offer loss prevention services, and it's actually shocking how many companies don't take the carriers up on that. And in this instance, that's really too bad, because the carriers are looking at this across the whole book and across all different industries. Why not learn from some of the ways that they've found to prevent losses from ever happening, and sharing information?
Yeah, well, that's certainly an important part of this. So, is there, for lack of a better term, a model cybersecurity policy that folks should be looking for, or is it really just, by industry or by business that this goes by?
Yeah, this is a very interesting coverage line, because there's not really standardization of terms
Okay.
just yet. And it's interesting to me because I think the carriers are also trying to figure out what risks they're willing to insure and what risks they're not. So, one of the other very hot topics right now, especially after SolarWinds, was the war exclusion. There is a war exclusion in all of these policies, but the London market, on the heels of a couple of these very large losses with nefarious actors, broadened the scope of that war exclusion significantly. When we used to think of war exclusions, it was, okay, Russia just attacked the United States. And the war exclusion that London has put out there is, almost like any bad actor, including those that we don't even know what country they're affiliated with. So there's still a tremendous amount of variation. And I do think that the insurance industry generally is trying to get comfortable themselves with what's going to be within the realm of an insurable loss and what's not.
Okay, so just to put a bow on what business owners should be doing, talk to your IT people, review your technology, read the policy carefully when the renewal comes in, and talk to your lawyer, accountants, those kinds of people, cybersecurity experts about what they should be looking for, and what the business should be looking for.
Yes,
Anything
and
else?
then, yeah, there's one other thing that's also really important, and that is to notice broadly across all of your policies. So many companies now have a dedicated cyber policy, and that's going to be obvious. That's the first place people are going to think and go look. But don't be that narrow in providing your notice, because sometimes there will be endorsements added to a first-party property policy. There may be on your crime policy, there may be an endorsement that provides some coverage for something like this. So my advice is notice very broadly, put every carrier that could possibly touch this claim on notice, and then you can sort out later which policies you're going to zero in on for coverage. Because the consequence of not providing notice broadly and early, some of these policies you might wait too long and a otherwise covered claim could get knocked out on late notice. But also, even if you don't get knocked out on late notice, carriers don't tend to pay for or give you credit against your retention until they're on notice of a claim. So if you're paying lawyers, you're paying consultants, the carrier generally will take the position, until I've been put on notice, anything that it was incurred before you told me about it, not covered and not credited against the retentions. That's really important.
Okay. Okay. Well, before I let you go, I just was hoping we could broaden the discussion a little bit to talk about the market in general. What does the insurance market look like? What are you hearing from clients? Are they able to get the coverage, sufficient coverage at affordable prices? A, what does it look like now? And B, what do you think is coming down the road?
So right now, notwithstanding what happened with CrowdStrike, the cyber market is pretty good. The
Okay.
terms and conditions, it's a policyholder, it's a buyer's market right now. And again, I want to keep reinforcing that means you can get negotiation on those terms. And also work with a knowledgeable broker, because these cyber policies, there are insurance brokers out there that specialize in placing these policies. So even if you use your ordinary broker for the 5 other policies that you place, having a knowledgeable insurance broker in the cyberspace, really important. But right now it's a buyer's market. The prices are relatively good. The retentions don't have to be significantly high, but it is a cyclical market. Just a few years ago, I would have answered that question very differently, especially after there were a lot of ransomware and phishing campaigns, again, across a wide array of industry.
Okay. So for cyber policies, then not a bad place to be. For other kinds of insurance? I mean, do you have any sense for what those markets look like? Just
So,
general property casualty kinds of things.
yeah, property casualty is incredibly difficult right now. That is a very hard market, unfavorable to policyholders. People are seeing skyrocketing premiums even when they've had clean claims
Wow.
history. A lot, and I think a lot of that is being driven by the significant weather events that we've had, and they have to spread that. You know, those are massive, massive losses that are getting spread across the whole book. The D&O market right now is relatively soft, relatively good for buyers. Same thing, customize those terms. Yeah, so a little bit of a mixed bag.
A mixed bag, sure, but the climate change and resilience and sustainability, all those kinds of things. I mean, if that's not going to change anytime soon, that sounds like that's going to be a problem for a while. Yes.
Absolutely, and climate change in particular, that's something that you're going to hear about. Policyholders will hear about in their D&O. They're being asked, what are you doing to look at this? What with public companies, what kind of representations are you making to investors about these very important issues? Because I think that's a bucket of claims that I think the insurance industry is worried about coming down the pipe in the next 10 years.
Right, and really for businesses, it's just make sure you got the best coverage you can afford, I guess. Yes. Yeah,
and to really be vigilant. So many clients, before they've had a bad claim, they consider insurance through the lens of how much does it cost? What are my limits? What are my retention? And that's really just starting to scratch the surface of what coverage did I just buy? So don't think about it just in terms of the financial terms of price. The terms and conditions always matter when a claim gets made.
All right. Well, that's why we have lawyers.
Exactly.
Lynda Bennett, partner at Lowenstein Sandler. Thank you very much. This was fascinating and a great discussion. I hope we can talk again sometime.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Really appreciate that opportunity and to share my insurance geekdom. Really do love the opportunity to do that.
Excellent. Thanks again. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.